Bava Kamma Mem continues working through our Mishnah. We spend the first sugya discussing the kaifer, how you pay kaifer and why you pay kaifer, before moving into other sugyas related to kaifer and muad in general, and then we'll get to our Mishnah's discussion of sharha its tadin. So let's begin. The Gemara is moving from the halachos of apotropis to kaifer. The Gemara begins by quoting a brisa that talks about the two subjects together. Brisa says that an apotropis who needs to pay for the damages that were caused on his watch while he's representing Yisayim, he needs to pay min aliyah. However, he does not pay kaifer. So that is, if the ox that he's charged with taking care of gores someone and causes a hezek, he has to pay from his own property. This brisa rules. However, if it kills someone, he doesn't have to pay the kaifer payment that one usually needs to pay if his ox kills someone. Now the Gemara says, what is the reason for this? So it seems to be that this Tana holds that kaifer is a kapara. Kaifer is not designed to be a payment, as in a financial restitution. It's designed to be a kapara. It's designed to be an atonement for the person who owns the shar for negligent manslaughter. Now, the Gemara says, Yisayim don't need kapara because they're ketanim, and because they're therefore couldn't be viewed as being Ayra and Avera. They don't need a kapara, and therefore there's no kapara for Yisayim. If no kapara for Yisayim, then the apotropis that's representing them doesn't have to pay kaifer either. Now, the Gemara says that this seems to be the pshat in the brisa. Who holds the way? Says of Chizis, Rav Yishmael, the son of Yechon ben Berka, holds the way. The Gemara quotes a brisa to show that there was such a machlekes. It's going to take a bit of limud here. So the brisa says that when the pasuk describing a kaifer says v'nasan pidyon and nafshay, you should give the redemption for his soul. So how do you evaluate kaifer? Kaifer is based on what? Where does the cash figure come from? So Rabbi Shmuel says, Rabbi Shmuel ben Yechon ben Berka says you evaluate the value of the mazik. You look at the mazik, you say how much are you worth. Now the Tana Kamma there says you evaluate the nizik, the one who is killed by it, and say how much was he worth. Now what is the argument based on? Do you evaluate the value of the mazik or the nizik? Samara says it would seem to be that the Tana Kamma, who the Gemara calls the Rabbanan, hold kaifer is momain. Kaifer is a restitution, and therefore you pay for what you destroyed. You pay for the nizik. Yishmael ben Berka holds that it is for your own self. You're redeeming yourself, as it were, and therefore you pay the value of yourself, the mazik. So it seems to be a machlekes over is kaifer a kapara or is kaifer a momaina, is kaifer a restitution. Says Rav Papa, that's not the pshat of this machlekes. Everyone here actually agrees the kaifer is a kapara. The only question is, what do you need to do for a kapara? You need to pay your own value, or need to pay the value of what you hurt, what you destroyed, the value of the nizik itself. And that is not just a svar machlekes. Somewhere says it's based on psukim. The Rabbanan say you evaluate based on the nizik, and that's because they learn from a pasuk which uses the word shisa. It says kasher yushas olav im kaifer yushas olav, and it says before kasher yushas olav bala isha, talking about where someone caused a miscarriage by hitting a woman. So over there, it's certainly talking about you pay for the nizik, you pay for the fetuses that were miscarried. There it's a nizik. Here the word yashis therefore also refers to the nizik, and that's the Rabbanan source in their drasha. Rishon says it says v'nasan pidyon nafshoy, you should give redemption of his soul, means his own soul, and therefore it's referring to the value of the mazik. Say the Rabbanan, yes, he is redeeming his own soul, but the dollar amount that he gives is based on the nizik. It is most definitely a pidyon nafshoy, but it doesn't tell you what the figure is calculated as. Now the Gemara quotes an incident which discusses some other questions on the topic of how you pay kaifer, the payment for the death caused by one's ox. So the Gemara says that Rava was talking to Rav Nachman, and he was praising Rav Acha bar Yaakov that he was a Adam Gadol, was a great man. So Rav Nachman said, when he comes to town, bring him to me. So he came to town, and he brought him, and he said to him, ask me something. So the question that he asked, seems like Rav Nachman asked Rav Acha bar Yaakov, the question that he asked what is the halacha if a shar is owned by two partners, two shutfin, and then the shar goes and kills someone? How do you pay kaifer? Do they each pay full kaifer? If that's true, then the nizik receives kaifer twice, and the Torah only says pay kaifer. It doesn't say pay twice kaifer. On the other hand, if they each pay half a kaifer, then they're only paying a half, and the Torah said pay a whole kaifer. It didn't say pay a half a kaifer. So what do you do? So he was sitting and thinking about that, and then he added another question. He said, there's a mission that discusses when you take a mashkin, when you take a collateral, a security, to force someone to pay something that he owes. So if somebody vows an erech, he vows in a certain amount based on his own value or someone else's value as a pledge to hektish. So you take a mashkin. You take a mashkin from him in order to make sure that he pays the money that he vowed to give. However, if he pledges to bring a korban chatas, well, if he's chayav, that is, to bring a korban chatas or a korban ashav, you can't pledge those. But if he's chayav those, you don't take a mashkin from him to force him to bring those. He's just going to bring them because of their severity and their chomer. He's going to bring them on his own. A mashkin is not required. So that's the introduction. Now the question is, what about kaifer? Is kaifer like a chatas and like an asham because it's an atonement? And if we assume that a person is naturally going to be very stringent on himself, and you don't have to take a mashkin to bring a chatas and an asham, kaifer you don't have to bring either. On the other hand, maybe, although it's a kapara, it's different than your standard kapara. It's different than chatas and an asham. Chatas and asham goes to shamayim, it goes to gvaya, to hektish. Here, this money is going to another human. It's going to a regular hediyah. So maybe people are going to look at it not so seriously, because you're not giving it to shamayim, you're giving it to a hediyah, and therefore they won't take it so seriously, and you do need to take a mashkin from it. Or, perhaps going back to the first tzad, you say, since he didn't really do the aveira, he didn't really do the crime, it was his money that did, it was his shar that did, he won't take it very seriously, he won't view it as his own obligation, and he's not going to pay it unless you take a mashkin, and he should take a mashkin from him. So he responded, he said, leave us still locked up thinking about the first one before you start bombarding me with more questions. The Gemara now switches gears slightly to talk about a shar that was loaned. What does that do to its status as a tam or a mood? So we have two halachos. One is if a mood is loaned, how is the shayel, the borrower, how does he deal with it? Is it a tam or a mood in his rishus? And second of all, if it becomes a mood in the rishus of the shayel and it goes back to the original owner, what's its halachic status there? So the Gemara quotes a brayta that discusses both of these cases, and it says, if someone lends his ox to someone else, and the borrower doesn't know that it's a mood, so he did not accept to guard and to watch a mood, and the halacha is he's not responsible for the mood aspect of it, but he is responsible for the tam aspect of it. So the borrower has to pay chati nezek, and the original owner has to pay the other half, the mood part, which he kept responsibility for. But the borrower did accept at least to watch it as far as the chati nezek, and therefore he has to pay that amount. Now, the second case in the brisa is if the borrower borrowed it as a tam, and then it gored 3 times while under his watch, and it became a muad under his watch. Now, of course, it has the halachas of a muad, because he made it a muad, and then he goes and he returns it to the original owner. Now what? So if it gores there, so the halacha is the bailim only have to pay half nezek, and the shal doesn't have to pay anything. The shal is not responsible for it anymore. It's not in his rishus. It's not in his control. The owners, though, it turns back to being a tam. It's not a muad. Now, the Gemara is going to say that these two halachos seem to contradict each other, but we'll see that much later. Now, the Gemara begins. The Gemara says that you said that he borrowed it as a tam, and it turns out that it was a muad, so the original owners have to pay half the nezek, and the borrower has to pay half the nezek. Why does the borrower have to pay anything? He should say, my borrowing is completely void here. I do not intend to borrow a lion. I intended to borrow a regular ox. Even though I accepted to watch a tam, that's because I thought he was a tam. I didn't accept to watch a wild animal that you're giving me. So the more answer is we must be referring to a case where he knew that it was a wild animal. He didn't realize that it was a muad, actually, a certified muad. He just knew that it had a tendency to attack, and therefore he can't claim I didn't know what its nature was. Now, the Gemara says you should still be able to say, I only intended to borrow a tam. I never intended to borrow a muad, so the entire thing is mekhatais, and the whole deal is off. So the Gemara says, no, because you can't say that. You could still say to him, if you would have borrowed a tam, you would still have had to pay half the nezek. So therefore, you still have to pay that half of the nezek. The other half you don't have to pay, fine. So the Gemara says, no, it's still no good. Because the half nezek that he pays as a tam is not the same as half nezek that he pays for a muad. As a tam, he pays migufay. He only has to pay up until the value of the ox itself. And now, as a muad, he has to pay from all his possessions on Shabbat to it. So he has to pay much more. And he has to pay beyond the value. So why is that fair? He should still be able to say that I want to have the halachos of the tam. So my answer is no, because we would have to pay extra anyway. Because he would have to pay for the damages, and he still has to give back the ox that he borrowed. So he can't give away the ox that he borrowed as payment for the damages. He has to return it to the lender. And therefore, he's going to end up having to pay from his own property anyway. So he says, no, there are still issues. he should say that if it would have been a tam as I thought it was, I would be able to be moide b'knas. We'll assume that palga niska knasa, a half nezek payment for a karen tam, is a penalty. Really, you're not make our din, you shouldn't owe anything, and therefore it's knas. The Allah is moide b'knas pater. If you come and you admit that you owe it, you don't have to pay anything. So you should be able to say I would have gotten away with that. The Gemara says now, even according to the Man Yamar, that Paganis Kamamayna, that it's not a knas, that really you owe full, and it's a full restitution, but for some reason we decided to go lenient on you because you didn't know. So according to that, being a knas won't help you, but still he could have said, I would have sent it out to the swamp. Now, this is not clear what he means. I could have sent it out to the swamp. Rashi doesn't say anything. Taisa says it's an expression by which he means to say, I would have bargained the nizik down and paid him less. And now the fact that it becomes a muad, I can't bargain him down anymore. I would have been able to say, I'll give you this, I'll give you that. But yeah, he owes him min aliyah, so he doesn't have a bargaining chip at all. And therefore, he still says, I should have been able to escape from this, and it's not fair. They have to pay the whole 50% of the nezik that you bring mechayv me. So the Gemara says, okay, so therefore we'll have to say that the case is that the Beis Din grabbed it away from him. Once the shar gores, it's liable, and the court can come and repossess it in order to pay the obligation. So that's what happened. They came and they took it away. So Gemara says, okay, if that's true, so we understand why the shayl, the borrower who's supposed to be guarding this ox, and it got taken away from him by the court, so we understand why he's responsible for that. But now the original owner, why are they responsible to pay their half? They should say that this responsibility is on the shayl, because he's the one who lost control of it. He's the one who allowed the Beis Din to come and take it away. He should have said that it's your fault. You put my ox now in a place where I can't do anything about it. I can't even take him to court and argue. So therefore, the original owner should say, my half, we're not responsible for. So Gemara says, no, because he would say to him, even if I would have given it back to you, I would have returned it, they would have come and taken it from you. You couldn't protect against the Beis Din. So to that, the Gemara responds, the original owner still of the tain, I could have sent it out to the swamp. So according to Taisvus, that means I could have bargained the price down. Other Mefarshim may mean that he's really saying I would have just chased the ox away and I wouldn't have had to pay anything. So the Gemara responds, that wouldn't have helped you because you're paying for the aliyah, you're paying for the muad half, you have to pay min aliyah anyway. So sending it to the swamp is not going to help you. According to Taisvus, it would be that since you owe min aliyah, you have nothing to bargain. The guy's going to collect what he owes. He's not afraid he's going to lose his cow or anything. So the Gemara says, I understand where he has property, so the borrower could say you would have had to pay min haliyah because you have other things. But what about a situation where he has no property? What are you going to say then? Over there he has no taina. And again, the original owner should be able to say, I don't know anything. How come you have to pay? And the Pasha says he has to pay, even where it's just the ox, he has to pay and doesn't have any property besides. So Gemara says the reason is because the borrower will say to him, I owe you the ox, and you owe it to the nizik. So we have a halacha when Reuven owes Shimon and Shimon owes Levi, Reuven can pay straight to Levi. So that's what I did. I gave it to the original nizik. I gave it to the nizik. You can't claim anything against me because I'm allowed to deal with him directly. I could skip you. This is what we call shibuda de Rav Nosson. The Markos Abraisu, where Rav Nosson says, how do you know that if someone owes money to his friends owe money to someone else, that the first person could just pay directly to the third person, and the third person could claim it from the first person? It says, Manasan la asher asham loy. So therefore, asher asham loy, the one who owns it. So that's why I was able to give it to him, and you have no claim against me. Okay, so now that I asked the steer we mentioned before, the beginning of the brisa, we say that if it becomes the end of the brisa, that is, we say that if it becomes a muad in the house of the shayl and it is returned to the original owner, the owner only has to pay chatzin as it goes back to being a tam, and the shayl doesn't have to pay anything. That implies that reshus mishanet, by changing from one domain to another, it loses all its chazakas and it goes back to being square one. It goes back to being a tam. You don't stay muad as you go from reshus to reshus. However, the Reisha seems to be clearly saying that Rishus does not change it, because the Reisha says that when the original owner lent it to the borrower, it still had the halachas of a muad. So the Reisha says Rishus ate a mashana, the Sefer says Rishus mashana, which is it? Someone gives a few approaches. Rav Yechanan says it's a kasha. The one who says the Reisha doesn't say the Sefer. It's contradictory and it's different man in the Amr. Rabbah says no. They're all referring to Rishus ate mashana. It makes no difference from Rishus to Rishus. The Reisha, I understand why the shayl has to deal with it like he would, because Rishus ain't Mishanet. According to the Sefer, the reason that it goes back to being a tam was because the shayel's making it into a mood is ineffective. The shayel's not the owner. You can't judge the ox by its borrowed responsibility, and therefore it doesn't have the halacha of muad for himself while he's in charge of it. It has the halacha of muad, but it goes back to being a tam. His hadah didn't count. Papa gives a third approach. He says it's all in the opinion that Rishos Mishane. The Reisha holds a Rishos Mishane, and the reason why it has a din of a muad is because going from the original owner to a borrower is not change Rishos. You're still in the Rishos of the original owner all along. And even when he's in the property of the borrower, it's still Rishos of the owner, and therefore there's no Rishos Mishane. However, if it becomes a muad in the property of the shayel, then that doesn't carry over to go back to the original owner because that entire thing was created limited to the property of the shayel. The Gemara now refers back to the Mishnah and discusses shar ha'itzdadin, a shar which is taught to be an attack shar, to gore for radios and things like that. So the Gemara says, what is halacha of shar ha'itzdadin as far as being brought as a carbon on the mizbeach? We know that a regular shar that gores someone, kills someone, is possible for carbon. This shar is an oinus, he was taught to. He was nothing he could do about it. Is he possible for the mizbeach as well? So Mar says machlekes Rav and Shmuel. Rav says he's kosher for the mizbeach. Shmuel says it's possible. Rav says he's kosher because he's an oinus. Shmuel says it's possible because he was involved in an avera. He killed someone, and therefore it doesn't matter if he's an oinus or a ratzain. He is an avera, and he was nevad by avera, and therefore he's possible for the mizbeach. Now the Gemara quotes a brisa discussing the halachos of kosher and possible to the mizbeach to try to bring a proof about this machlekes. The brisa discusses. The Torah, when it discusses karbanos, it says min ha-behema, min ha-bakar, umin ha-tzayin, 4 drushes, min, and then umin. So when it says min ha-behema was to exclude a roiv of an ear of an animal that was involved in an act of bestiality, whether male or female. Min ha-bakar is to exclude one that was used as an avodah zarah, one that was worshipped. Min ha-tzayin is to include one was set aside to be a carbon for an avodah zarah. Umin ha-tzayin, the vav is to include a gorer, an ageach. Now, says Reb Shimon, why does it have to say Reiva and Nagech? Both are in Maisa Avera, but one is murder, and one is a act of bestiality. Why do you have to say the two of them? It should be enough to say just one of them. So my answer is because the Brisa answers because there are halachos that are different in each of them. Reiva, there is no difference between an oinus and a ratzain. A negeach, though, there is a difference between an oinus and a ratzain. That's the difference that way. The other way, negeach pays kaifer. A reiva does not have to pay any kaifer. That's why it has to mention reiva and has to mention negeach. Okay, that's the brisa. Says Gemara, you saw here that in reiva there is no difference between an oinus and a ratzain. In Nagech, however, the Gor, there is a difference between an Einus and the Ratzin. What does that mean? Probably as far as carbon is concerned. There is a difference, and only in Ratzin Nageach is possible for a carbon, but an Einus should be able to be brought as a carbon, and therefore the Shahar Stadin should be. Says no, it's not a right. What we mean to say is that there's no difference between an Einus and a Ratzin as far as killing the ox. That's if you have 2 witnesses who saw it, and you can take him to court, and you can arraign him, and you can give skila to him, as you do with any ox which killed. There, it doesn't make a difference if it killed as an einus, or killed as a ratzin, killed as a sharat stadin, or as a regular ox. And that's what we're bringing. Because of that weakness in the halachos of killing it, a roiva is killed whether it's an einus or a ratzin. A negech is not killed if it's an einus or it's a ratzin. Therefore, it's weaker, it's lighter halachos. You could not have learned it from the roiva as far as the halachos of karbanos. It says that this has to be the pshat, because when it says that an einus and ratzon are the same, it has to have taught us one of those halachos. It taught us that by the case of killing it, giving it the death penalty. At least it said that ratzon you do kill it, but by negicha, as far as having a psol for mizbeach, it didn't say einus, it didn't say ratzon. How can you tell me? Oh, you didn't make a difference between an einus and ratzon. It didn't say either of them, so you wouldn't know either halacha. So therefore, it couldn't be referring to that. The Gemara focuses briefly on the halacha that we said that there is no kaifer for a reva. So says, how could you have kaifer by a reva? You only pay kaifer for killing someone. What does kaifer have to do with reva? So Gemara says maybe we're talking about where the shar was reva a woman, he did a bestiality, and he killed her. So Gemara says if he killed her, then he should have to pay kaifer. What difference does it make if he killed her with his horns or with any other part of his body? So Gemara says it must be referring to the actual reveal without killing, but there's no killing there. Kaifer is only for killing the person, so what does it have a shaykhs? So my answer is, the woman was taken to Beis Din and given skila for her avera. So you may think that the shara is chayiv for killing her because of the participation in the act of reveal that gave her the death penalty. No, you don't get anything for that. That's Umar's first answer. That's Abaye's answer. Rava says we're talking about where he actually killed her with the reveal, and you ask the question that it should count as the same as goring with the horns. The difference is that it's not Karen, it's Shane. It's a Maisa Hana, it's not Kavanase Lahazik. And the Machlekes is Kaifer only for Karen, or is Kaifer even for Shane and Regel? Like, for example, if an animal steps on a child in Rosh Hashanah and that's Regel, there will be a question of do you pay Kaifer or not. According to Abaye, you would pay Kaifer for that, and therefore it's not a good answer to say that this is talking about Shane, and that's why there's no Kaifer. According to Rava, you would not pay Kaifer for that, and therefore you could answer that this is talking about Shane or Regel, and therefore you don't pay kaifer for Shane and for Regel. Now, as far as the machlekes as to whether the shor ha'etzadin is roy l'mizbeach or not, the Gemara quotes a brisa that says, like Rav, shor ha'etzadin is not given misa, and it is kosher for the mizbeach because it's like it is forced to do whatever it does.